So today is May 1st. Beltane, happy May Day. Um, I haven't made a video on the Sacred Secretion or talked about it for 3 months now. And they have been very challenging 3 months. That's one of the reasons why I just haven't taken the time. I've been struggling, and my family has been struggling with our new situation. My husband took a job in that time where he's gone Monday through Friday and only home on the weekends. My son has moved in with his two little children, ages 2 and 1, and I've been the main caregiver for them during the week while he's working, or his ex-wife is working. So that's been a huge change for me to have little babies to take care of. Not as young as I used to be, and packing around a 1 and a 2-year-old has been physically challenging for me. I've had health issues. The health issues that I've had symptoms of it for almost 4 years now, and I finally got a diagnosis last month. So it just kind of felt like my family was put in a little pressure cooker for the last 3 months, and we've been just trying to figure out a new normal, trying to figure out and we're still kind of in that pressure cooker. I don't know how a lot's going to change in the next little bit as well. I have a son who's getting out of the Marines and will be home next month. And then my other son who's in Peru, I've talked about him a little bit. There's a possibility he might be coming home. My family all struggles with depression. And I've struggled with depression off and on throughout my entire life. I've been able to deal with it better at some points in my life than others. I have used medication in the past, not currently on anything, but I came very, very close, and I still may. We'll see. I talked to my doctor probably the first of the month. So my health diagnosis, let's just start there. I've had hip pain since the summer of 2015 was the first time I really experienced my hips having problems. And I was getting ready to go on my first vision quest at the time. And I remember sitting in the sweat lodge when I was awakening my Chnupa, and just asking for my hips to be healed because I was very worried about sitting on the mountain and having incredible pain in my hips. When you are on a vision quest, you are in a very sacred space, and you're only allowed to leave that sacred space to use the bathroom and get right back in. And so I was worried about sitting for 4 days, 3 nights with my hips. So I was in the sweat lodge. This was August of 2015, and asked for a healing for my hips. And I remember them pouring the mini wankan. I can say it. It's in my head. It just won't come out of my mouth. It means sacred water. But pouring it over my hips and asking for a healing. And I was able to go on my vision quest, and I did not have pain. I had no issues with my hips. Actually, for about the next 9 months, I was pretty much pain-free. But slowly, the pain has come back more and more constant. And since I started working in November, it was nonstop. And you don't get relief from this pain at night. It's something that is just always there. Well, I went into my doctor on February, and he couldn't find anything wrong, but he took an x-ray. Thank goodness. That's what saved me. And then I saw a different doctor just a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, and he knew right away what was wrong. So I was born with hip dysplasia, and I have very little hip socket. So my hips basically just kind of rest. My the ball just kind of rests instead of it's covered. It's more like that. So there's not a socket to evenly distribute the weight when I walk or run or sit, anything I do. So I've been constantly wearing out my hips the last 50 years of my life because I was born with this condition. So now I'm full of arthritis as well because my hips have just worn and worn. I'm not to the point where they would suggest a hip replacement, but that is the only way to cure what I have wrong, is to just replace my hips. So it was good to know what was finally wrong and why I'm in pain so much. But at the same time, I'm not thrilled with the diagnosis. So I, this past week, turned back to some of my books on the Sacred Secretion. And this one is from George W. Carey. It's a chapter called, it's from The Word Made Flesh, which is a book you have to read if you want to understand the Sacred Secretion. God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. This is a chapter from that book, and it's called As a Man Thinketh in His Heart, So Is He. And it talks about how in the ancient times, the heart was not what we refer to as the heart. The heart was in our head. So anyways, that chapter, I went back and read it again, and there's just a piece in here I wanted to share. Okay, so he's saying our heart is actually in our head. And he says this is George Carey talking. The upper brain is composed of highly specialized substance. It is a reservoir for God's creative compounds, the sacred secretion. It is that God-making material, the kingdom of heaven, wherein all is found. That's why when we say, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Heaven means heaved up, or the high place. The cerebrum is then the kingdom of heaven, for it is within us. By seeking it, we draw from it the precious oil or ointment, which shall nourish the brain and therefore cause it to grow and expand. Certain parts of the brain cells are dormant. They are in a certain slow rate of motion or activity, and therefore answer to the vibrations of their kind. Thought, then, is a vibration, and as a man thinketh, so does he vibrate in his brain cells. So let us begin to think. Let us choose the material from which we shall build our temples, the temple of the living God, our bodies. Thought is both creative and destructive. Not only are we making our bodies now, but we are making those which we shall wear in the future. By the future, I mean the individual is reincarnated. A great thinker has said, know this mighty fact. The soul is but the fruitage of thought, tinctured and tarnished with the emotions and passions and desires of the flesh. First, as regards to the physical body, thought selects the food by which the body is nourished. The cells of the body are being constantly destroyed and rebuilt. The purest food possible to obtain will construct a pure body. Vegetables, fruits, and grains are of much finer construction than flesh, and hence can vibrate to much higher rates of motion. Flesh is a decaying animal matter and is detrimental to the highest development of man. Much flesh eating thoroughly coarsens the body, and the marks of his calling are stamped on the face of the butcher. Another example is that of the man who drinks. Alcohol brings about exactly the same result. The body cannot respond to any of the higher vibrations. Just as surely as the note you strike on the piano must produce a certain tone, just so surely will your body answer to the same rate of vibration around it that it vibrates to in itself. The high cost of flesh food during the war has been a blessing in disguise. The body must be kept scrupulously clean and be given sufficient exercise. If your body is not satisfactory to you, my body is not satisfactory to me at the moment, it is because you have indulged in thoughts that have marred its construction. It is never too late to do something toward the reconstruction and regeneration of the body. Start now. And then I'm just going to end with two more little thoughts. That just gave me a lot of hope, because the last 3 months, I have regressed and treated my body pretty much like a garbage can. I didn't eat meat, but I ate junk food, and I would say that's just as bad. I'm feeding my body with low vibration food for sure. Let's see. So the last paragraph I wanted to share, he says, the prodigal son wasted his substance in riotous living. His thoughts were turned towards the indulgence of the lower passions, like the rich young man who went away sorrowful because he had many possessions. He's talking about the story of Jesus. Therefore, the precious substance, the oil or ointment, the elixir of life, was sold for a mess of pottage. The seed, Jesus or Christ, was not saved. If his thoughts had been pure and clean, the seed would have reached the cerebellum, the heart, and would have increased in power 1,000-fold. They would have become the anointed of the Lord, would have received the oil or ointment. The prodigal would have then become the son in whom the Father was well pleased. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. I read that a few days ago again, and it was just it gave me hope, because I've let my life carry me into this space of sadness and depression and hopelessness. And sometimes it can be really hard to get out of that. And so I was looking through my books on the Sacred Secretion, most of them by George W. Carey, and that one was the one that just spoke to my soul, that it's not too late. Yeah, I've screwed up. I've messed up and wasted a few months, and my body has paid for it. I've been in a lot of pain these past 3 months, but I can get it back. And the hardest part is going to be for me to change my diet. That's kind of where instead of meditating, I've gone to food for my comfort. Instead of going back to the tools that I know really work for me, the yoga and the meditation, I've let that go. I've let the chaos of my life be an excuse to not take care of myself. And the depression, it's just this kind of vicious circle. The more I let myself go, the more depressed I became, and which made it harder to do any of the things that I knew that would help me. So now with a diagnosis, at least I know I can never run again. I should never run again. But there's other things that I can do. My doctor was really encouraging. He did a lot of tests and movements with me and said, for a person with your condition and your level of arthritis inside, he's like, you have really good range of motion. And to me, it was very poor range of motion. It's very limited compared to what I was used to, say 6 months ago. And so, but in his eyes, he's like, you still have great mobility. I'm like, well, it doesn't feel great to me because I'm used to, or I used to be much more flexible and had a fuller range of motion. But of course, I've let myself go and haven't followed through, especially the last 3 months, with the things that I know help. But having a diagnosis has been comforting. I'm not crazy. When I take a step and it feels like my hip is going to pop out, there's a reason. And I knew that there was a reason. I just didn't know what the cause was. And it's because I don't have a good socket to keep my leg in place. So all my muscles, which is why my body gets so tense, is because my muscles are trying to keep everything in alignment. And I know I haven't done my body any favors by not practicing my yoga or my meditation. I've stopped everything. When my son moved in and I had to help take care of him, his children, I really just didn't know how to get that back into my life. When in my day to do it, it just was very overwhelming to me to try to figure out my schedule again. But it's something I am determined to get back into my life. The meditation and the yoga and practicing the sacred secretion, being very mindful with the food that I eat and the drinks that I put in my mouth. With alcohol, I'm torn. I still feel like a glass of wine is okay. Getting drunk is not something that I have any desire to do. I don't want excess alcohol, but I don't mind having a glass of wine or something. But it is something I'm going to cut out for a while and just see how I do. The next, I would say, at least 12 weeks, I want to really focus on self-care and getting my body back, figuring out my life, and still in the process taking care of my family. My daughter graduates the end of this month and we'll be moving out of the house. So I'll have my 3 youngest children, and I have a daughter with special needs who is also can be a challenge to care for, just being honest. It is not easy dealing with somebody, whether they have autism or any kind of special needs. It just requires extra. But I've got to fill my cup in order to give. And that's what I've neglected to do. And that's what got me to the point where I'm at, which is not great. So anyways, I'm thankful for the divine inspiration that came to me to start reading again about the sacred secretion, and to just, I love that little piece of advice. It's never too late. Just start over. Yeah, I've made mistakes and I've let myself go, and I've got myself down into a hard, dark, murky mess at the moment. That's what it feels like. I'm in a giant mess. But it's not something I can't get out of. It's not something I can't take care of and change. So I just wanted to update kind of where things were at for me, why I've been so silent. It's because I've been dealing with a lot. And but I feel like I'm on the upward slope of coming out of that hole, depression, and being so overwhelmed, not knowing how to go forward. And I've got a plan to go forward, and we'll see. I don't even know when the moon is in my sign. I've been totally oblivious to that. So this month will be the first time practicing it since January, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where things go. I'm also doing a new kind of breath ceremony that has to do, it's in the water. And so we'll see how this next month goes. I'm hopeful things will be better, that I'll start to feel better. And of course, my diet and exercise and meditation, those things you can't neglect. And I plan on getting it back. So thanks for listening. If you made it this long, God bless you. Happy Beltane.